Time now for breathing lessons with Susan Kay, helping you learn how to breathe and release those beliefs that have been binding you so you can just enjoy life and breathe easy. Breathing lessons with Susan Kay.
Hi again, this is Susan Kay with Breathing Lessons. Today I want to start a new series called Power versus Force. When I left the church in 2008, I was kind of falling apart. I was adrift. I had no idea where I was, what I believed, and I decided that that was okay. I had to be in that space for quite a while. And one of the things that I did not do was run out and find another religion or look for some other practice like Buddhism or something of that nature, or join a cult, because I recognized that would not be in my best interest at the time, because I was so confused about who I was, how my life had been in the past, and I just really did not have a map. So I ran across this book. This was probably 4 or 5 years out. I ran across this book called Power versus Force. And it's written by David R. Hawkins. He's an MD and a PhD. He's an interesting fellow, and I don't know that I agree with everything in the book, but it doesn't matter, because what I did come across in this book, there are things that really helped me and gave me a roadmap. And I want to share those things with you in the next few videos to see if it doesn't help you in some way to find a roadmap, maybe out of something that you want to get out of, or maybe you're out, but you don't know how to navigate now that you're out, and whether that means out of religion, or maybe even out of the closet, or out of a marriage or a relationship, or out of the job. I mean, whatever. So the premise of this book, he did not say this, but I'm going to use it this way, and that is that power, real true power, is the understanding of the value of life itself. It is the connectedness of all things and all people. Force is contrary to that. Force is what we get into when we do not understand who we are. We do not understand how we relate to other people and other things, nature, the world, the earth, the universe as a whole. And force is what we do when we devalue life. So I want to read a few of these statements to kind of give you a ground level view of what we're going to start working on in the next few sessions, and let you know that this is going to be probably a long process to get through all this stuff, but I think it was so powerful in my own life that I would like to share it with you. So in the chapter that's called Power versus Force, he talks about how you can tell if it's power or if it's force. And he says, power is always associated with that which supports the significance of life itself. I think that is very important right now for where we are in our world. Power is always associated with that which supports the significance of life itself. Power appeals to what uplifts, dignifies, and ennobles. I love that. Power appeals to what uplifts, magnifies, and ennobles. Force must always be justified, whereas power requires no justification. We could say that force is a movement. It goes from here to there, or tries to, against opposition. It is an opposing force. Power, on the other hand, is still. If you look at the great teachers of all times, whether it's Jesus or Gandhi or Buddha or some of the more recent ones. You will always find stillness in them. You'll always find this restful place inside of them, and you will not find them wrestling to try to justify who they are or what their stance is. Gravity itself, for instance, does not move against anything. Its power moves all objects within its field, but the gravity field itself does not move. Force is incomplete and therefore has to be fed energy constantly. Oh, I could say a lot about this. It's the rah, rah, rah. Let's get it. Let's do it. Let's, rally the troops. Let's get everybody all stirred up. And that's force. You'll find that, you'll find it everywhere. You'll find it in the political realm, whether it's one place or the other. You'll find it in churches a lot. You'll find it in, our military. You'll find it in all the types of things that are rooted and grounded in force. Power is total and complete in itself and requires nothing from outside. If a person is standing in their power, they can stand completely alone because it doesn't require other energy to have power, to be power. Because force has an insatiable appetite, it constantly consumes. So let's talk about consumerism right now. Think about the ads on television or, wherever they are. They're everywhere. What's it doing? Television or the advertising agencies are always trying to force you into a mentality that you need something other than yourself. You need this product. It cracks me up. I'm on Facebook, and so, I'll scroll through, and the advertisement's like, oh my gosh, this is a life changer. And they're always, this life-changing, product is going to just completely revolutionize, which is another word they use, your life, and you have to have it. And force always makes you feel like you're less than, always makes you fear that you don't have what you need to move ahead. That's force. Power, in contrast, gives energy, supplies, and support. Power gives energy, supply, and support. So power gives life and energy. Force takes these away. Think about that for a minute. Just think about that for a minute. What do we do in our society that takes away? That's force. What do we do to embolden and to ennoble and to uplift and support? That's power. We notice that power is associated with compassion and makes us feel positively about ourselves. Power is not rooted in anger and rage. It is actually rooted in peace and joy. Force is associated with judgment and makes us feel poorly about ourselves. But it doesn't just make us feel poorly about ourselves. Once we feel poorly enough about ourselves, then it can create a situation where we begin to blame others for that. And that's part of force. We'll see all this as we go through the next few weeks. Force also creates counter-force. Its effect is to paralyze rather than unify. So it's a divisive energy. It's very important. Constantly faced with enemies, force requires constant defense. I think these points are so important for what we're going to be talking about. Defensiveness is invariably costly. Whether in the marketplace, politics, or international affairs, think about trials. Think about going to trial and what it costs people to get the lawyer, design the argument, sit in a courtroom, be battered and badgered by the other side, all these kinds of things. It takes a toll on people. Why? Because it's all in force. It's all that high energy of that costs us. It costs us everything. I am not saying we should never go to court. That's not what I'm saying. In looking for the source of power, we've noticed that it's associated with meaning, and this meaning has to do with the significance of life itself. Force is concrete, literal, and arguable. Force is concrete, literal, and arguable. It requires proof and support. The only thing, and I'm going to wrap this part up with this, the only thing we can say about a source of power is that it just is. Where we find this source of power is within ourselves. And those of you who believe in God can say, well, the source is God. That's true, but we are not separate from God. So the source is within us. So the thing we're going to be doing in the next few weeks is going through this list. This is a list from bottom to top, and it's called the Map of Consciousness, and this is what he calls it. And it is all these things with the line down here. I don't know if you can see it, pointing down. These things are all energies of force. These things are all energy of power. And it's going to be very interesting to figure out where we land in this. I can honestly say there are times that I am in power, and there's times I've been in force since I've read this book. And I when I start feeling exhausted and tired and overwhelmed and miserable and angry and frustrated, I know I'm in power. I know that I'm in force. I'm trying to force something or someone. When I am energized and I find life to be easy and comfortable, I know that I'm in power. And I really don't have to work at anything. And when I say that, I'm not talking about being immobile or in inertia. It just means that what I do takes way less energy. It just doesn't take the energy out of me that it would if I was in force. And because so I'm going to read the ones that are in force, because we're going to go up the scale starting next week. So next week we're going to talk about shame. Shame is the lowest energy you can walk around in. Anything under shame is death. And I don't know about you, but I was raised in shame. I speak shame. I know how to speak shame. I know the language of shame. Because I was in the church for 52 years, I recognize the language of shame and guilt. And guilt's the next one up. So it's like shame, guilt, apathy, and all of these levels are a little better, and not better in the sense that you want to live there, but they're a little more energy than the one before it. So shame's the lowest. Excuse me. Guilt is the next one up. Apathy, grief. Grief's a big one. We'll talk a lot about grief. Fear. Fear. Our whole society is based in fear. Desire. That sounds like a good thing, but what we're going to show you is that depending on how you look at desire, it's okay to have desires or dreams, but that's not what this is talking about. Anger. Anger is higher on the scale than shame, guilt, or apathy or grief. It's up because in anger you have a little energy. The next one is pride. And I think that is interesting. Pride. We're going to talk about pride. What does pride look like? And the one that breaks the line from force to power is courage. Real true courage. So we're going to start this next week. Let me just give you a taste of this. Maybe you can be thinking about it. Shame, it gives you the God view of shame, the life view of shame, the emotion of shame, and the process of shame. So from left to right, the God view of shame is that God despises humanity. I am despised by God. That's shame. That's my view of God. If you've ever been around toxically religious people, you know what that looks like. It's just this utter, they just think that the human form and humanity as a whole are just despicable. So this is what their view of God. The life view of someone in shame is that they are miserable and that they're supposed to be miserable. One of the things I recognized as a Christian was how I was afraid to not be miserable. Because I thought if I wasn't miserable, then I wasn't paying attention to things that I was doing wrong. So I needed to make myself see all my faults and all my flaws so that I could remain miserable, so that I would not be judged by God. That I would judge myself so that I would not be judged by God, who despised me. The emotion of shame, and this one really hits deep with me, is humiliation. Being constantly humiliated. Constantly humiliated. Feeling so destroyed by humiliation. I could tell a lot of stories about that, but I don't think I will. All right, and then the process of shame is elimination. Elimination is an interesting idea because I know that in my frame of reference, which is the church, God was always making us eliminate things out of our lives. We couldn't dance. This is the extreme. Couldn't dance, couldn't smoke, you couldn't drink, you couldn't smoke, you couldn't dance, you couldn't go to parties, you couldn't go to a bar, not even a brewery where you might eat a burger. You couldn't be seen with certain people. You couldn't explore. You had to eliminate anything in your life that didn't agree with that which was force in your life, that which was forcing you into this little tiny baby life that, that's about this big. And so elimination is a big deal. So we're going to start with this next week, and I'm not going to go into this any deeper today, but next week I will do another one, and we will talk about shame and how important shame is to understand. We need to understand what shame is. We need to recognize what shame is, and we need to find a way to eliminate shame in our lives. And really, and the only way, in my opinion, that we eliminate shame in our lives is we turn around our whole understanding of what life is. Easy, huh? Yeah, super easy. We understand the connectedness we have with the universe, with one another, and how we make a difference, how important we are to the whole of life, which is really connectedness. So that's it for this week. I really would like you to like and share my broadcasts. I'm going to do my best to get on Instagram in the next week to do little bits of these things on Instagram so that you can see it on there too. So for now, I'll just say goodbye, and next week we will talk about shame. And you're going to want it. And it's not going to be negative. It'll help you, I think, to understand what it looks like, how it's affected your own life, and kind of how to get out of it. So join me then.
Thanks for watching Susan K today. Subscribe on the button below and be watching for more. Learn how to breathe with Susan K.